Hello, Georgetta Gankars here, and today I'm going to do a quick demo video. The canvas that I'm going to be using is going to be a landscape, and it's like this. And you know that I do these paintings for students in about 20 minutes to about maybe a half an hour if it's a little bit more detailed. And you know, the ones that I'm showing you, I've done oils, acrylics, I've also done acoustics, but this is going to be just a simple one with the wash. And I have my palette. I have from light to darks. I have my earth tone colors together and my warm and my cools separate, 2 inches apart. So let's get started now with our wash. You can see I have my large brush for my wash as always, and I have my brushes here. And I discussed the brushes that I'm using in another video. So let's get started now. So I'm going to turn you around so you can see. I'm going to be working from this canvas over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my wash, and I dip my water in my brush into my water. I have acrylics, and I'm going to pick up the color of the sky that I'm going to start with. And in this situation, I'm probably going to start with a little bit with a light blue. I have a little bit of light blue, and I'm picking up the water. As you can see, I have my blue on my brush, and I combined it with a little bit of white. And I'm going to do that wash going all the way across the canvas here. Pretty much covering that area that I want to be that color. I'm going to move it down a little bit here. Okay, so you can see the first step is I have my blue wash on. Then I'm going to move to something else. Let's put this one here. I'm going to move to my pink. And I'm going to keep this on the brush, a little bit of the blue, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my red. Now, I recommend you to mix with a palette knife. I've been painting for years, so I know exactly how much color I want on the edge of my brush and having control. But if you don't have that control yet, mix with the palette knife. You don't want too much paint on your brush. And I'm picking up some red as I go with my brush, and I'm just mixing it with this blue because I want to have this kind of purple cast here. And I'm just going again back and forth with the brush, and I'm going up and I'm kind of smoothing this area in the sky, sweeping very lightly so I have this very nice soft gradation here, as you can see. And let's put a little bit more light on the canvas. You can see that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit more white in my brush here. And I'm just going to go over it because I want to make that a little bit more opaque. So I see some of the color, but it's not coming through a lot. And it blends wonderfully. You can see it up close. It's a wonderful blend here. Let's move the camera a little bit here so you can see it. Okay, the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what color that I'm going to have down here. And I decide that maybe I want to have some purples and some more pinks. So I'm going to pick up that pink again, and I'm just going to go over it. And I'm just going to go over it lightly just to bring it out where I want it to be in the sky. I'm going to feather my brush back and forth very lightly. I'm going to pick up some orange and a little bit of orange and white. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to kind of move this orange and white very lightly on top of the blue. So I'm blending it. But you can see the orange coming through, right? It's not blending with the blue and making a green because I have really good control of my brush. And now I have this going on. And then I might decide that I want a little bit more pink in here just to pump it up, a little bit more of a contrast. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just using my hack brush again. And I'm picking this up and I'm blending this very softly. And I really tell students the importance of blending colors and making the washes perfecting your washes and knowing how much you need to put pressure on the brush. Students sometimes are using their left hand versus their right, so they're holding the brush differently. Also, they have to get the feel of the brush. How much paint do they need? How lightly can their hand go across the canvas? All of these things are really important when you're kind of making your washes. Okay, so very lightly across. And again, we're making up this landscape from our head. So now we have this going on, beautiful blending. I'll show you from this point of view. Oops, sorry, my thumb is in the camera here. Okay, so we have this beautiful blending going on. And the next stage we're going to do is we're going to start building up the clouds. So now I'm probably going to take like a number 8 flat brush. You can use a 12 if you want the clouds larger. I'm going to start with the lightest color. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of dipping my brush into my light color, which is my white first, and then I'm grabbing the other color that I want to use, which is yellow. I'm dabbing it on my wax paper, and then I'm just directly moving it to the canvas on here. And this is what I call wet on wet. You might have to hold your canvas down if you have it mounted on this kind of a board, and you're just going to dab. And it might shake a little, but that's okay. And you're going to put those clouds where you want them. And mine is shaking because I have this light above. And I'm just putting in some yellow where I want it to be. So now I have these yellow clouds here. The next I'm going to do the same for the orange, and I'm moving again, from light to dark. And I'm going to put the orange where I want these orange clouds to be. And I'm just kind of, again, picking up the white and the orange and blending them. And you can see they're not blending with the blue underneath. I have total control of my brush. Okay, and I'm putting this area on. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pump this up and I'm going to add some purple. So I'm going to go back with my wash brush and I'm going to pick up a little bit of purple. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it to make it a little bit of a tint. And I'm going to bring some of this purple in here. And I'm just going to move my brush around and kind of swirl it around. So I'm using the same hack brush, but now I'm going like this, kind of in circles or half circles. I'm just building this up, and I'm going to put a little bit of white on some of those areas on the edge of my brush, and I'm just going to swirl it around very lightly. And I'm doing this because I want this feeling of this opaque feeling. And remember, I'm going to go back and create more clouds. This is kind of just the build up and the beginning of the steps of kind of like what we're doing as far as all underpainting and building up that sky. I don't want to get rid of all the blue. I want to leave some of that blue as a surprise. I may drag a little bit of purple going across here just to make it kind of exciting and blend with the rest of the sky. And again, you can always go back with your white lightly. I'm still using this wash brush where I'm blending these areas. So now I have the sky and it's really beginning to come alive a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a smaller brush, and this happens to be another flat. This is about number 6, and I'm going to start picking up my white. And what I can do is I can kind of lightly dab on top. I have a little bit of pink in the brush, and I'm not going to start putting those clouds yet. I'm just kind of putting a little bit where I want them to be, or where I think that I want them to be in my makeup kind of painting here. And remember, some clouds encompass the whole sky. Some clouds do not. Some clouds are just in certain areas. So make sure that you leave some of the clouds kind of transparent by not pressing that hard, because you want to see the spaces in between. you should be able to see all these beautiful colors that you built underneath. And if you cover it all, you won't see that, okay? So you do want to be able to see all the colors that you have underneath. And you want to keep building up that cloud area. And I'll show you, you can keep putting more white and just kind of dabbing, just really fast. And when you do that, you can see some of the color coming through again, and then some of the areas not. And if it's a cloud where you want to blend it, you can use the edge of the brush, kind of smooth it out. So now you have, you know, these clouds that are smooth. Some of them you're going to build up with a little bit more texture. And you want to keep doing that. And you can pick up different colors. Maybe in one cloud, the cloud, I'll show you, happens to have like a yellow behind it. So you're going to pick up this yellow and you're going to dab lightly on top. You know, or you might pick up an orange and decide that you're going to put, you know, orange and yellow on top. And you can keep building up this cloud cover, okay? And what happens when we do that, we can really control our brush, and you'll see we have all these really beautiful colors coming through, okay? Now, the next step is we're going to just do an out layer, and again, we don't want to spend that much time on this area. We're just doing our underpainting. So we're dipping our brush in our water, wiping it off, and I'm going to do this area under here. And for that, I'm going to use a smaller brush. It's a round brush that comes to a point. If you have a script, that's a good brush too. I don't recommend a liner at this point. You don't need that much detail. And when I mix my greens, I mix them myself. So I just have kind of like this permanent green that I'm mixing with a little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to add some black to it. I really want my colors to be natural, and I want them to represent what I see in the sky, or the trees coming through, what they're reflecting from the sky. So I'm kind of just putting this dark layer down first. As you know, when I start painting, I always have my darker colors. You can add a dark color and a light color directly on top where you're blending the shadow directly at once. You know, so I'm adding this dark color here, and I can add a lighter color. I can also come in with like a brown and put on top and blend it wet on wet. It works really well, but you want to have a variation of all your different colored greens. And you want to get those shadows in, and when the brush is, you know, doesn't have enough pigment or water, it's too dry, you want to go back and pick that up. Okay, so I'm just putting in this dark green area, and now what I'm going to be doing is, I'll show you this green area here. And now I'm going to be moving that green all the way across. The other thing is when you're using acrylics, you do want to mix enough of the paint. It's very frustrating when you have the color you want and you don't have enough of it. I talked about ways how you can extend your paint, mediums you can add to your paint. I did a whole video on that as far as extenders in my class. So you'll be using them, or the spray water bottle technique. There's lots of different methods that you can use. So I'm just spreading this green, and I'm doing it really fast. If I wasn't talking right on the video, I'd be going a little bit faster. So I'm going a little bit slower. And I'm kind of moving this all the way across, as you can see. Okay. And then I'm, again, you know, at the end of the day, the landscape is your best friend. So you can do it the way that you want. You don't have to have realistic strokes. You can have loose strokes. You can use a larger brush for that. You know, you'll have less detail, depending on what you want. But I'm just putting these greens down here in this area. Maybe I'm going to have that same color green. It's going to be down here. So I'm going to put it here. Now again, we didn't do an underpainting like we usually do with the oils, or sometimes I do it with the acrylics. This is kind of where we're just painting and we're doing it fast. We're just filling in these areas using this method. Okay, so now we have these areas down. And again, I do the same with watercolors, with different mediums. And then I can go in there and I can start adding a different color. Like say for an example, I want a green, but I want the green to be a little bit realistic. So what I'm going to do is I pick up the color that I had before, and I'm putting that color down there, and I'm just kind of putting these green areas and filling them in at this point. I'm not doing more than that. I'm going to change my brush to a larger brush so I can go a little bit faster. As you can see, I'm still picking up the same color. It's green, a little bit of Mars black, and my cad yellow, and I added a little bit of brown in there, and I'm just going to kind of go and I'm going to dab these areas here. And again, you can change your colors on your canvas. The thing is, when I'm doing these kind of mountain scenes, I record where the light is, so I can get the light really fast, because the light changes when I'm painting plein air outside. So I really need good sketches, and I really need to understand how to mix the colors, where I should apply the paint. And I pretty much teach you that in my class, so you can see color. And I wrote a whole book on that, because you really have to know how to mix the colors and where the light is for your painting to be cohesive. Even if you're doing something that's abstract, you still need to pay attention to the light and where it is. And again, I'm kind of painting, super fast again. I would probably be painting faster if I wasn't talking, but I'm just masking out these areas for now. And you can see, just so I can show you all the different colored greens that we have developed here. When I do my canvas also, I don't like making it very even. I like breaking out of that space, coming back up. I don't like, just for me, I look for landscapes that are challenging and that have lots of shadows and light. So my underpainting is very interesting, and then I can come back and I can add those light areas on top for a wonderful type of contrast. But first I have to, build up all of the different color greens and the contrasting areas, and then I start changing my stroke. I can decide if I want these to blend, or if I want a rougher edge, where I'm using a different type of brush. Do I want the colors to blend and be a little bit more realistic? What do I want? And I usually decide that. Sometimes I surprise myself and I change it as I'm going along. But this is what you should have here for kind of your underpainting and building it up. And you can see the areas that are darker. We're going to go back and we're going to follow the light from the sky. Okay. Now, I want to show you something. Usually I do the middle ground, but I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this. This is going to be a round brush. And I decided, this is the wonderful thing about, painting. You can choose at the last minute, ooh, I want to put this in here. I didn't have this in here, but I think I want to do it. And I want to show you something. What I'm going to do is I'm decided to put maybe some mountains here, and I can put them in. But remember, I'm going to do them light because they're far in the distance. I can do their shape, and you can choose the colors that you want. You can also add some white to them on top. So I'm going to make them a little bit darker now so you can see them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of white to them just to make them so you can see them on camera, just to make them a little bit more, opaque. Add some white, some blue, and then we'll add these, these mountains here. We could have done them first. It's an afterthought, which is kind of cool. I'm going to cover some of this with my green anyway, but just make the painting a little bit more interesting. We'll have these mountains where we see a little bit of them, not all of them. And again, I'm going over them, with a little bit of white. So they're kind of disappearing. You're seeing some of them, not all of them, in the distance here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back with a little bit of blue. I'm just going to put this over here. And it's a really contrast to this pink. That's why I chose these colors. I could have had a different color for the mountain, but I wanted these colors because they're a contrast to these pink areas. Now the reason I'm doing this is I want to show you how we can drastically change this. So let's pretend these are my mountains in the back. I'm not going to see all of them, right? I'm going to cover again some of them up with that green. And you know, when we're using oils, we'd have to press very lightly. When we're doing acrylics, we have control because it can dry a little bit fast. So we can do those washes on top, and I'll show you what I mean. Now I have this blue area over here. I'm going to add a little bit of green. I'm going to change this landscape a little bit because I don't want it to be so exact, so I'm going to have a little bit of green mountains coming through here, just a little bit. And you see how drastically that changes. So now we have this in the back. I can also take a dry brush, I'll show you, and when it's semi-wet, I can go across and I can kind of bring these areas into the sky so they're not as apparent. I can also go back if I want with a little bit more white opaque and bring down this cloud cover and make it disappear. I can also go back with a little bit of the color above and start just brightening it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing in more contrast now of these colors just to make them pop. I really want to have an exciting sky. I don't want to have, you know, a sky that's kind of boring. And I want to change the clouds. Some clouds go across, right? So you can see how I'm using my brush going like this now. I'm not using it up and down. I can use it going across. So look at the sky and think, what kind of clouds do I have? Sometimes you have a variation of clouds that are just coming from one area. You see them going across. Sometimes you'd have to use a little small brush. So now you have a variation of these clouds that are kind of going across, as you'll see. And then you have these puffy clouds up here. Okay, and now we're going to just put down some land down here with another brush. And I'm just going to bring in this brown. I'm going to change the color of this, but I just want to have this for now. So I know this is the start of what I'm going to be working on. And I kind of have this down as my underpainting. Again, there are many different ways to do the underpainting. Sometimes when we do the underpainting, we cover the canvas first, which I did in other videos. But we're going to do, this is a new way to do it, a different way. There's lots of different ways to paint. You have to find the way that you like that works for you. You know, none of them are wrong. Just which one makes you feel, you know, happy and that you have to enjoy what you're doing when you're doing it. And sometimes you're not going to like the stroke. You might cover it up, and that's okay. But try to do something that you feel comfortable with, that makes you feel that's uniquely your stroke. You know, if you don't like dabbing, if you like it to be more realistic, maybe you like a smaller brush. Maybe you like large abstract strokes. That's basically all up to you. Okay, so here we're not really in. We just kind of have the covering, and this is how far that we've got. And this is what I was showing you. I'll show you a little bit up closer. And this is basically about 15 minutes in. Okay, so hopefully you watch that video, you'll watch the other videos of the other paintings that I've done, and try it yourself. Okay, have a great day. Ciao.